What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're all doing well, and thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to click here on another video where we're going to be talking about one of the most highly anticipated films of the fall season this year, and that film is called Him. Directed by Justin Tipping, who wrote this film alongside Zach Akers and Skip Bronke. This film stars people like Marlon Wayans, Tyriq Withers, Julia Fox, and more. So here we are talking about one of the most highly anticipated films of the fall season, and this is an interesting one. There's been a big misconception that this film is actually directed by Jordan Peele, but it is not. It's actually directed, as I already mentioned, by Justin Tipping, who is a director I'm not really familiar with. But the film is produced by Jordan Peele and is also a production under his production company, Monkey Paw Productions, in collaboration with Universal Pictures. So there's been an interesting misconception. A lot of people think this is a Jordan Peele movie, and it's not. I know a few years back, a similar thing kind of happened when the Candyman remake or reboot happened, where his name was put at the front as one of the producers, and a lot of people thought he directed that film as well, or at least went into the film thinking that he did, but that is not the case then, and that is not the case now. But with all that said, let's get into what this film is all about, and then we'll get into my thoughts on the film. The film focuses on Cam Cade, who is a promising young quarterback whose dreams are derailed after a traumatic attack leaves him with a serious brain injury. When hope seems lost, his idol Isaiah White, a legendary aging quarterback, extends a lifeline, which is to train at Isaiah's secluded compound. As Cam's training intensifies, what seems like mentorship turns sinister, and Isaiah's charm and influence begin to reveal a dark and dangerous side to him, pushing Cam into psychological and physical challenges that raise the question, what price will he pay for greatness? And this was a film I was very excited to check out. Outside of the misconception that Jordan Peele directed this film, I just liked the way the trailer looked. I like how it was edited. It seemed like it was going to be this weird, eerie, horror, psychological horror, dramatic football story that more than anything has a story about the notion of, kind of what are you willing to sacrifice, as they say in the trailer, for greatness, for the ability to become him, as the title would say, to be the GOAT, to be the greatest of all time. And so I do think that that's an interesting premise. I thought the trailer looked cool. I really liked the lush look of all the colors and the reds and the lighting in the trailer. And I can start this off by saying that I think part of what makes this film work, without a doubt, is the overall look of the film. The cinematography of the film is lush, which is all thanks to cinematographer Kira Kelly. Really enjoyed the way that this film looked, and it all works hand in hand with great lighting, some great costume design, set design, locations used. There's so much about this film that has a good sense of style, and I would unfortunately have to say that this is a film that is far more style than substance. But to remain on the path of positives, it's also a film that has pretty great performances, with our main star Tyriq Withers being great as Cam Cade. I really like his journey. I like this character who just wants to, train under his idol, and, he really just wants to go for it. He wants to become the greatest. And I think that's something a lot of people can really relate to. And I think a lot of people who are really big sports fans, or somebody who's an athlete themselves, are going to be able to watch this film and relate to his character 100%, not wanting to have something like an injury set them back from achieving the greatness that they want. And in the world of football, that's definitely something that a lot of people have wanted to attain. And so I think this is going to be a film, just when it comes down to the character of Cam Cade, that is going to be very relatable to a lot of people. Now, I think the standout performance here, without a doubt, is Marlon Wayans as Isaiah White. Really enjoyed him here. I think he's an actor who's very well known mostly for comedic performances and sketches, but he does have, some dramatic films that are in his repertoire. But a lot of times, even some of those dramatic roles that he's done have definitely been something that, lean into some of those moments of humor. And while this film definitely has its moments where he can employ some of that humor and some of that comedic timing that he's well known for, it's certainly a more dramatic and grounded performance that has these moments where things are a lot more heightened, and he has to play it big as he becomes more and more sinister, as the trailer would show you. With all that said, outside of great performances and great costume design, set design, locations, cinematography, and all that great stuff, I honestly thought this was a film that had way more potential that I honestly really didn't love. I didn't hate it, but I found it to just kind of be very middle of the road when I look at the overall picture. A lot of times in the modern day, you'll hear, the trailer ruined the movie. And a lot of times when people say that, the general gist is that the trailer showed you all the best bits, or pretty much showed the beginning, middle, and end, the big key moments of the story, so there isn't as much surprise when you watch the film. In the case of this film, I actually think the trailers did a good job of kind of leaving things ambiguous outside of the general concept that the film is about a character chasing his dreams and kind of what is he willing to sacrifice to attain those goals. The trailer just shows you a bunch of snapshots of weird things that happen in the film without really giving you overly heavy context. Unfortunately, now having seen the film, I can say that the film never really takes anything to the next level outside of the surface level idea of this being about a character who's pushed to his limits and has to figure out what he's willing to sacrifice. That's essentially just the general plot of the film, and it just never really feels like it goes anywhere bigger. I think in the modern day where we've had a lot of discussions about the idea of selling your soul for greatness, selling your soul to achieve big things, this film just kind of takes that and gives you just a pretty bare bones idea of it, wrapped up in a film that has a lot of style. Again, I already praised the cinematography, and if you've seen the trailer, you know there's a weirdness to this film. There's creepy things he sees, people who are in weird outfits throughout the course of the film. And the film at times does kind of live in a place of ambiguity where you are wondering, is what he's seeing in his mind? Is it really happening? Are these dream sequences? There are moments that are dream sequences where he's being woken up abruptly from one of these dreams. And so sometimes the film leaves things ambiguous for you to decide what's real and what's not, only for us to get to the finale of the film and it just kind of goes big, bombastic, and crazy, and just kind of clearly lays things out for you, kind of removing that ambiguity while also leaving other things in ambiguity. There are some things that the film leaves ambiguous. It leaves it up to you, but not really in the place where it's like, oh, it's up to you as an audience member to figure it out. It's just more so like it didn't really feel like they had full answers or knew how to wrap up everything that they were showcasing in the film earlier, which oftentimes made certain sequences feel kind of pointless. It made certain characters and random side characters or just sequences in the film kind of just feel like these big hollow moments that were meant for the audience to have more of a what the fuck am I watching kind of feeling and more of a trippy feeling, and less so of something that was really moving the characters forward or the story forward. And it was interesting to talk to some of my fellow critics that were at the screening that I was at, because I was wondering if I was going to be on the more negative side. But I spoke to at least 6 or 7 different critics who I was at the screening with who were all like, there were such good elements, really good ideas, but it just doesn't feel like they knew how to bring it all together in the end. And by the time the movie was over, it just felt very surface level. It felt like it was 100% style over substance. It felt like they never fully understood what the assignment was. They didn't fully understand what the journey was for our characters, other than just the base premise of this character going there and being challenged as to what he's willing to sacrifice. I mean, that is literally what the trailer promises you, and it just never really feels like it went deeper than that. And I wanted to see more, and I think Marlon Wayans is great. I think Tyriq Withers is great in the film. I think the rest of the supporting cast, as little time that they do get in the film, but I think they're all pretty solid. And there were some elements about this film that I do think are cool. And in some ways, it kind of reminded me of a film that came out a couple years ago called Infinity Pool that starred Mia Goth and I believe Alexander Skarsgård. And that was a film that had interesting ideas, some really great visuals, some weird trippy elements to the film. But by the time it came to an end, for me at least, it just felt like more style and weirdness for the sake of style and weirdness, and less so of like a really deep story. And I would argue that that film at least had a little bit more to say at times, whereas when the case of him, it just feels like it never really knew what it was trying to be, and it left me just kind of struggling by the time the movie was over with this big bombastic ending that just feels like they just wanted you to leave the theater going, oh my God, that ending was crazy, and less so like you just went on a real journey with our characters. And it also felt like we were jumping all over the place at times. The movie takes place on different days over the course of his stay at this compound, and every day is like a different challenge for him. And over the course of these days, things get more and more weird, more and more sinister, but the relationship between the characters always felt like it was so kind of different in every day, and it doesn't really feel like you're flowing through these days with our lead character, and it just made the film feel messy. And then you eventually get to this finale that just feels like it was just tacked on to a movie that didn't really have a general idea for where they wanted it to go, other than the general concept of what the movie's about. So I won't sit here and ramble much longer. I didn't really think him was all that great story-wise. I think visually and acting-wise, it is a pretty solid film. I'm sure there will be people who enjoy it, but based on some of the other critics I spoke to at the screening that I was at, and some of the, just regular casual members who went, it didn't seem like a lot of people were enjoying it. One dude who was part of like the people who got free tickets to the screening, that was just part of the general audience. He was not there with any media group or any, critic, approach or agenda. He came out looking very disappointed and very audibly said, that movie sucked, and I don't think everybody's going to feel that, but I do think it's one of those films that's going to have a lot of people expecting a lot more out of it because of the hype that's kind of built up around it, and expect maybe a Jordan Peele level writing film. And unfortunately, you're going to walk out of this film and get something that's a lot more surface level. So that's going to be my thoughts on him. Definitely want to hear what you guys have to say down below. So hit that like button, comment your thoughts, subscribe for more early reviews like this, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.